I just got back from Canada. Yeah, we were waiting for Christmas. Shri Shri Radha Gokulananda ki, Sitaram Lakshman Hanuman ki, Shri Shri Gauranitai Bhagavan ki, Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Namo Om Vishnu Paraya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Desatarine. So Hare Krishna everyone, welcome for the Gaura Arti. In the center of the altar, for those of you who are just visiting the temple, in the center of the altar we have Shri Shri Gauranitai. And this arti is their arti. It goes through explaining their different pastimes and how they're glorifying the pastimes of Krishna as well. So we'll be singing that in the top right-hand corner. You can have all the words. So please sing along with us for this arti as well. Thank you so much. Jaya, Jaya, Gaura Chande Aratika Shobha Jaya Jaya Gaura Chande Aratika Shobha Jana Vitatavane Jagamana Lopa Jana Vitatavane Jagamana Lopa Dakine Nitai Chan Bame Gadadhara Nikati Advaita Srini Vasa Chatradara Vasa Chatradara Bose Achi Gaurachan Ratna Simhasane Bose Achi Gaurachan Ratna Simhasane Arati Korena Brahma Adi Devagan Adire Vakane Nara Hari Adikori Chamaradulaya Sanjaya Mukunda Vasu Go Sadijaya Jaya Mukunda Vasu Go Sadijaya Sangha Baji Gantha Baji Baji Karatala Madhura Mridanga Baje Paramarasala Sankhabaji Gantabaji Madhur 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 Baji Sangha Baji Gandha Baji Madhur 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 Baji Sangha Baji Gandha Baji Madhur 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 Baje Sangha Baje Gandha Baje Sangha Baje Gandha Baje Madhur 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 Baje Bahu Koti Chandrajini Vadana Ujvala Gala Dese Banamala Kore Jalamala Kore Jalamala Shiva Sukha Narada Preme Gada Gada Bhakti Vinoda Deke Gaura Rasambhada Jaya Jaya Gaura Chandi Aratika Shobha Shiva Jayo Jaya Gaura Chandi Aratika Shobha Jayo Jaya Gaura Chandi Jana Vitatavane Jagamana Loba Jana Vitatavane Jagamana Loba Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Gauranitai Gauranitai Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Gauranitai Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Govinda Jai Jai Gopala Jaya Jaya Govinda Jaya Jaya Gopala Jaya Jaya Govinda Jaya Jaya Gopala Jaya Jaya Govinda Jaya Jaya Gopala Jaya Jaya Radharamana Hari Govinda Jaya Jaya Radharamana Hari Govinda Jaya Jaya Govinda Jaya Jaya Gopala Jaya Jaya Govinda Jaya Jaya Gopala Jaya Jaya Radharamana Hari Govinda Jaya Jaya Radharamana Hari Govinda Jaya Jaya Govinda Jaya Jaya Gopala Jaya Jaya Govinda Jaya Jaya Gopala Jaya Jaya Radharamana Hari Govinda Jaya Jaya Radharamana Hari Govinda Jaya Jaya Govinda Jaya Jaya Gopala Jaya Jaya Govinda Jaya Jaya Gopala Jaya Jaya Radharamana Hari Govinda Jaya Jaya Radharamana Hari Govinda Jaya Jaya Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Ram, Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Govinda Jaya Jaya, Gopala Jaya Jaya. Govinda Jaya Jaya, Gopala Jaya Jaya. Radha Ramana Hare Govinda 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 Jaya Jaya. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Everyone please. Everyone together, everyone. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Everyone please, everyone. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. Again, everyone please, everybody. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. One more. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Bol. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Jaya Gauranitai, Jaya Gauranitai, Jaya Gauranitai, Jaya Gauranitai. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada. Nitai Gaura Haribo, 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 Gaura Haribo. Nitai Gaura Haribo, 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 Gaura Haribo. Shri Radha Gokulananda ki jai, Sitaram Lakshman Hanuman ki jai, Shri Gaur Nitai ki jai, Gaura Arti ki jai, Nitai Gaura Premanande Hari Hari Bo.
Namaste Narasimhaya. Prahlada Hlada Daine. Hiranyakashipurvakshahai. Shila Tankanakalaye. Iton Risimha Paraton Risimha. Yato Yato Yamitaton Risimha. Vahir Nrisimha Hridayen Nrisimha. Vahir Nrisimha Hridayen Nrisimha. Narasimha Madim Sharanam Prapade. Narasimha Madim Sharanam Prapade. Tavakara Kamala Varenaka Advuta Shringam Dalita Hiranyakashipo Tanu Bringam Keshavadrita Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadisha Hare. Jaya Jagadisha Hare. Jai Jagadisha Hare. Jaya Narasimhadev, 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 Jaya Narasimhadev. Jaya Prahlada Maharaj, Prahlada Maharaj, Prahlada Maharaj, Jaya Prahlad Maharaj. Shri Shri Narasimha Bhagavan ki jai, Shri Shri Prahlada Maharaj ki jai.
Thank you everybody for participating to this beautiful Gola Arati. Now Prashadam is serving in the main entrance, and the Bhagavad Gita class will given. Thank you very much.
made my evening today.
Just came by and gone.
I've been listening to weird. I've stopped listening to weird now. And then you just finished. It's Krishna saying, get back into it.
Hare Krishna, everyone. So we'll just start with the Jai Radha Madhav prayers. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Shri Shri Radha Gokula Nanda ki, Shri Shri Sitaram Lakshman Hanuman ji ki, Shri Shri Gauranitai ki. Jaya Om Vishnupan Paramahamsa Parivrajacharya Ashtotar Shata Shri Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Maharaj Srila Prabhupada ki. Jaya Om Vishnupan Paramahamsa Parivrajacharya Ashtotar Shata Shri Srimad Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Goswami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada ki. Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda ki, Namacharya Shila Haridas Thakur ki, Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasati Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki, Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shyamakund Radhakund Giri Govardhan ki, Shri Shri Radha Gokula Nanda ki, Shri Shri Sitaram Lakshman Hanuman ji ki, Shri Shri Gaurantai ki, Shri Vrindavan Dham ki, Shri Marpanavadip Dham ki, Shri Jagannath Puri Dham ki, Ganga Mai ki, Yamuna Mai ki, Bhakti Devi ki, Tulsi Maharani ki, Samveta Bhakta Vrinda ki, Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol. All glories to some devotees, all glories to some devotees, all glories to some devotees, all glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna, everyone. Thank you for coming today. We are reading from Bhagavad Gita, chapter 9, verse number 29. So the board's not up, so I don't know if you have on your phone and if you'll be able to recite. But we'll start with the Sanskrit. So, Samoham sarva bhuteshu. Samoham sarva bhuteshu. Name dveshosti na priyaha. Ye bhajanti tu mam bhaktya. Mayi te teshu chapyaham. Samoham sarva bhuteshu. Name dveshosti na priyaha. Ye bhajanti tu mam bhaktya. Mayi te teshu chapyaham. Samoham sarva bhuteshu. Name dveshosti na priyaha. Ye bhajanti tu mam bhaktya. Mayi te teshu chapyaham. Would anyone like to recite? Chapter 9, verse 29. Samoham sarva bhuteshu. Name dveshosti na priyaha. Ye bhajanti tu mam bhaktya. Mayi te teshu chapyaham. Samoham sarva bhuteshu. Name dveshosti na priyaha. Ye bhajanti tu mam bhaktya. Mayi te teshu chapyaham. Ladies, anyone? Samoham sarva bhuteshu. Name dveshosti na priyaha. Ye bhajanti tu mam bhaktya. Mayi te teshu chapyaham. Okay, we'll do word for word if you want to repeat. Sama, equally disposed. Aham, I. Sarva bhuteshu, to all living entities. Na, no one. Me, to me. Dveshyaha, hateful. Asti, is. Na, nor. Priyaha, dear. Ye, those who. Bhajanti, render transcendental service. Tu, but. Mam, unto me. Bhaktya, in devotion. Mai, are in me. Te, such persons. Teshu, in them. Cha, also. Api, certainly. Aham, I. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Translation. I envy no one, nor am I partial to anyone. I am equal to all. But whoever renders service unto me in devotion is a friend, is in me, and I am also a friend to him. Purport. One may question here that if Krishna is equal to everyone and no one is his special friend, then why does he take a special interest in the devotees who are always engaged in his transcendental service? But this is not discrimination. It is natural. Any man in this material world may be very charitably disposed, yet he has a special interest in his own children. The Lord claims that every living entity, in whatever form, is his son, and so he provides everyone with a generous supply of the necessities of life. He is just like a cloud which pours rain all over, regardless of whether it falls on rock or land or water. But for his devotees, he gives specific attention. Such devotees are mentioned here. They are always in Krishna consciousness, and therefore they are always transcendentally situated in Krishna. The very phrase Krishna consciousness suggests that those who are in such consciousness are living transcendentalists, situated in him. The Lord says here distinctly, Maite, they are in me. Naturally, as a result, the Lord is also in them. This is reciprocal. This also explains the words, Ye yatha mam prapadyante tam stathaiva bhajamyaham. Whoever surrenders unto me, proportionately I take care of him. This transcendental reciprocation exists because both the Lord and the devotee are conscious. When a diamond is set in a golden ring, it looks very nice. The gold is glorified, and at the same time, the diamond is glorified. The Lord and the living entity eternally glitter, and when a living entity becomes inclined to the service of the Supreme Lord, he looks like gold. The Lord is a diamond, and so this combination is very nice. Living entities in a pure state are called devotees. The Supreme Lord becomes the devotee of his devotees. If a reciprocal relationship is not present between the devotee and the Lord, then there is no personalist philosophy. In the impersonal philosophy, there is no reciprocation between the Supreme and the living entity, but in the personalist philosophy, there is. The example is often given that the Lord is like a desire tree, and whatever one wants from this desire tree, the Lord supplies. But here, the explanation is more complete. The Lord is here stated to be partial to the devotees. This is the manifestation of the Lord's special mercy to the devotees. The Lord's reciprocation should not be considered to be under the law of karma. It belongs to the transcendental situation in which the Lord and his devotees function. Devotional service to the Lord is not an activity of this material world. It is part of the spiritual world, where eternity, bliss, and knowledge predominate. We'll sing Mangalacharan. Om Jnana Timirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So I seek the blessings of all the devotees present here today. May we have a nice discussion, and I hope it's of value and it's purifying for me also. So we're reading from chapter 9, verse 29 today. So I have a question for you all. Imagine you've got something very valuable in your home, like a treasure. What would you do with it? Where would you keep it if you had to keep it safe? Where? Like in plain sight? Or where would you keep it? Under the bed. So hidden so no one can see it. Yeah, so when we have something valuable, we want to keep it hidden, right? Not in plain sight. So the Bhagavad Gita is a treasure. It's actually said that it's a manual for how we can live our life. And there's 18 chapters. The first 6 are described to explain karma yoga. The middle 6 chapters are describing bhakti yoga. And the last 6 chapters are explaining jnana yoga. So we're reading the 9th chapter today. So it's in the middle of the whole Bhagavad Gita, right? There's 18 chapters, we're in the 9th. But it's also the middle of the bhakti yoga section. So we're like in the middle of the whole of Bhagavad Gita and the middle of the bhakti yoga section as well. So we know there's something transcendental, something really valuable here, this chapter. So let's recap what's happening in this chapter because we're almost at the end of it. So in the beginning, Krishna says to Arjun, now I'm going to tell you the most confidential knowledge. And he says the secret of all secrets. And I'm going to share it with you because by this knowledge, you'll become free from all the miseries of the material world. That's a pretty bold statement, right? That this knowledge is going to free one from the miseries of the material world. So it actually signifies how important and valuable transcendental knowledge is. It can free us from miseries. He then goes on to explain how he interacts with this material realm and what is his position. So he explains how he's the creator, the maintainer, and destroyer. Everything happens at his will. Everything rests on him. Everything is dependent on him. But he is independent. He's not affected by anything. He's above it all. But it's very inconceivable for us because we're limited in our senses, our intellect, our capabilities to fully understand this. Then he moves on to explain how not everybody accepts him as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And so not everybody worships him. But people then start to worship demigods or kind of in the impersonal form, the universe. And so he awards the result of that worship based on one's understanding of that worship as well as the motivation behind the worship as well. So according to that, he awards one the result of worship. But if one worships the Lord directly with love in his personal form, then he awards the devotee liberation from this material world, and he can ultimately go back to Krishna. Then we come to verse 29. And I like to think of it like split into 4 parts. So in the beginning, Krishna says he envies no one, right? Then he says he's not partial to anyone, he's equal to everyone. Then he says, whoever renders service unto me, in devotion. So he's talking about service with devotion. And then he explains, well, what is the result of that? You know, he's a friend to the devotee, and the devotee is a friend to Krishna. So let's explore these aspects. So the first one is envy. Now, when we hear the word envy, sometimes we use the word jealousy and envy interchangeably, yeah? So I thought, let's read in the dictionary, what does jealousy mean and what does envy mean? So jealousy in the dictionary is defined as feeling resentment against someone because of that person's rivalry, success, or advantages. So you feel bad when someone has something or has achieved something that you perhaps haven't. So now let's look at what envy means. It means feeling pain or resentfulness because of an advantage enjoyed by another, joined with a desire to possess the same advantage. So notice the first part of that was exactly the same as the definition of jealousy, right? You feel painful, you feel resentful because someone has something that you don't. But on top of that, in the definition of envy, you desire to also possess it, which wasn't there in the definition of jealousy. So in simple terms, what does it mean? Jealousy, you feel bad someone's got something. Envy, you feel bad, but at the same time, you desire to have that thing and you don't want that other person to have it either, right? So it takes it a step further. So we talk about anarthas, unwanted things that we're trying to cleanse from our heart. You know, like greed, anger, pride, these unwanted qualities. And envy is actually considered to be the king of anarthas. So if we can clear out envy, then all the other anarthas will become much easier to clean. In this verse, Krishna is saying he envies no one. So why is he saying that? Why is he saying that he envies no one? Well, earlier in this chapter, I mentioned that Krishna talks about how he is the creator, he is the maintainer, he is the destroyer. He's above everything. Everything depends on him. Everything rests on him. So he doesn't need anything. So he's got nothing to be envious of from us. You know, we don't have something that Krishna doesn't have, so he doesn't envy anybody. What is he after then? What does Krishna want? Yeah, he just wants our love. That's all he wants. But why is he specifically talking about envy? Because envy is in direct opposition to love. Where there is love, there is no envy. And where there is envy, there's no love. So that's why Krishna is emphasizing this. If we look in the Bhagavad Gita, actually envy is mentioned in several verses. So let's have a look at some of these verses. In verse 1 of chapter 9, in the same chapter, Krishna says to Arjun, because you're never envious of me, I shall impart to you this most confidential knowledge and realization, knowing which you shall be relieved of the miseries of material existence. And similarly, in chapter 18, verse 67, Krishna says, this confidential knowledge may never be explained to those who are not austere or devoted or engaged in devotional service, nor to one who is envious of me. So in those two verses, he says that he will not reveal this transcendental confidential knowledge to one who is envious of him. Right? In chapter 12, verses 13 to 14, Krishna says, one who is not envious, but is a kind friend to all living entities, who does not think himself a proprietor and is free from false ego, who is equal in both happiness and distress, who is tolerant, always satisfied, self-controlled, and engaged in devotional service with determination, his mind and intelligence fixed on me. Such a devotee of mine is very dear to me. So this verse lists qualities that are favorable, that Krishna wants to see in a devotee. And he starts off by saying one who is not envious. So it's very important to Krishna that one isn't envious. But who is he talking about there? He's saying one who's not envious but is a kind friend to all living entities. So notice before he was talking about being envious of him, and now he's saying don't be envious of anyone else. And in chapter 16, verse 19, he says, those who are envious and mischievous, who are the lowest among men, I perpetually cast into the ocean of material existence, into various demoniac species of life. This is it's a pretty heavy statement. You know, what happens to one who's envious? But I think we understand the essence of it, that envy is a bad quality and we don't want it. We want to get rid of it. So Krishna is saying, you know, if you want to really understand the message of the Gita, you have to be free of envy. You have to. And free of envy from whom? So we described earlier, free of envy from Krishna, but also each other, from all living entities. So, you know, we may feel like at the moment we don't have a very close relationship with Krishna. We can't really connect with him, especially for, you know, just practicing devotional service in the kind of sadhana bhakti stages. And we might not even recognize we have envy of Krishna. So let's focus on our relationships here. Because in the spiritual world, we have relationships with everybody there. We have loving relationships. So Krishna wants to see that here also in the material world, that we have loving relationships with each other. So we can practice having that. We can practice being free from envy of each other here. How many of you would say you're free of envy? Have you ever felt envious of somebody? Yeah? No? No? Okay. We usually think no, but I'm gonna share with you a 6-point test to check if you feel at the moment envious or have in the past. And let's see if your answer changes at the end. So test number 1. If someone's praised in front of you, how would you feel? Would you feel really happy for that person? Like praised, so if someone's glorified, someone says something nice about your friend, for example, and you're there, how does that make you feel? Do you feel happy for that person? Do you feel, okay, yeah, indifferent? Or do you feel like, you know, something inside, like, oh, why didn't I get glorified, you know? Sometimes we hear, oh, this person, you know, dresses the deity so nicely. This person cooks so nicely. How does that make us feel? Do we sort of glorify the devotee as well? Or in our minds or openly, do we start to sort of bring them down? Do we say, yeah, they might do this nicely, but, you know, they don't even keep their house clean. Or, you know, they're not nice to this person. Do we start to bring that person down? That's envy. We're not fully recognizing or sort of accepting the glorification of another devotee. And it can be subtle. It's not that we openly say that. Sometimes we do that in our minds. So that was test number 1. Test number 2. If someone else makes a mistake, how does that make you feel? Do you feel bad for that person? Do you empathize with them? Do you feel indifferent? Do you feel, oh, actually, you know, like the philosophy says, you know, we need to be humbled, and so it's good, you know, they'll learn something from it, so it's okay. Do you feel good that someone else made a mistake because, you know, you think, oh yeah, people will realize what he's actually like or what she's actually like? I'll share a story to illustrate this. So there was a king, and he wanted to feed the brahmanas, so he wanted to arrange a feast. So he told his cooks that, can you please cook a feast? And the cook said, we don't have the facilities at the moment, so please organize that, arrange for that. So he said, okay, we'll have a makeshift kitchen outside. So the cooks cooked an amazing feast. The brahmanas came and they ate. And after they ate, all the brahmanas died. They all died. So everyone was like shocked, like what happened? And no one could figure out like, why did they die? How did they die? So this case went to Yamaraj, so who's the superintendent of death. You know, he awards us punishment or, you know, the results of our activities when we leave this body and moving on to the next body. So he looked at the case and he saw that what had happened was when the cooks were cooking, an eagle was flying over the makeshift kitchen with a dead snake in his mouth because the eagle eats snakes. So he's flying over, and in the mouth of the snake, there was poison dripping. It was dead, but there was poison dripping. And it dripped into the food that the cooks were cooking. But nobody knew about it. So Yamraj saw that that's what had happened, and he was with the Yamadutas. And they started to deliberate. So who should get the punishment for this sin that's happened? You know, the Brahmanas are dead. Who should get the sin? So one of the Yamadutas said, well, it should be the king because he arranged for this feast. So ultimately, you know, he's responsible. But then someone else said, well, how could the king be responsible? He didn't even know, he wasn't even there. It should be the cooks. They were responsible for cooking. They should have seen. Another Yamadutta said, well, but the cooks might have just been busy, gone to get an ingredient. How would they know that an eagle's flying over? You can't blame the cooks for that. They didn't know. It should be the eagle, because he was the one flying over. He should be given the punishment. And another Yamadutta said, well, the eagle was just hungry and just went to get food. How was it supposed to know that it was flying over a kitchen and there was food all around So it should be the snake, because the poison was coming from the snake's mouth. And another Yamadutta said, well, it can't be the snake, because the snake was dead. So how can you blame the snake, So they were all discussing and deliberating, and ultimately it was like pause. They couldn't come to a decision. So many years later, Yamraj came back, and he said, I know who's going to get the punishment for this sin. It's going to be this flower lady. So the Yamaduttas are like, why is this random lady being punished? So he explained that many years later, there was a lady who sells flowers, and she was walking, and some brahmanas came to her, and they were asking for directions because they wanted to go to the same king's palace. So they asked her, which way do we go? We're looking for the king's palace. And the flower lady, she laughed, and she said, oh, you want to go to the king? Are you sure about that? And she started mocking, and she said, well, many years ago, brahmanas like yourselves went there. There was a feast arranged, and all of them died. So she sort of mockingly sort of made that statement and informed them. So Yamraj said, because she experienced happiness or enjoyment from what had happened, no one else did. The king, the eagle, the cooks, nobody experienced happiness at that instant. Everyone was upset, but that woman did. So because she experienced enjoyment, she'll get the punishment for it. So it's really powerful, actually, that, whenever we perform some activity, whether it's sinful or pious, it's for happiness we tend to do it, right? We're all looking to be happy. But if someone else makes a mistake and we feel happy about that mistake, that sin comes to us. So we have to be very careful when if we're mocking other people for their mistakes, for example, because we could get the results of those actions. So that was point number 2. How do we feel when others make a mistake? The third test is, do you feel that you don't need to learn anything from anybody? Whenever we come to classes like this, sometimes we're like, yeah, I've had this before. I've already had this before. Why is this is nothing new? I remember, we hear, I'm not the body, I'm the soul. We hear this so many times, and sometimes you're like, I know this already, why do I need to keep hearing it? But actually, when I asked this question to a senior devotee, they said to me that, yes, you might know it as gyan, knowledge, but have you actually realized it? Vigyan, realized knowledge. Do you actually act in a way that you are the soul and you're not the body? And I realized, no, I don't. I still go on acting in the same way. So actually, the philosophy is never going to change, right? The philosophy is there, where it doesn't keep changing. The books, the scripture is there. The scripture doesn't change over time. The Acharya's commentaries, explanations of what's in the scripture doesn't change. So what changes? The devotee who is sharing their realizations, it's their bhakti that is coming out when they're giving a class or when they're sharing something in a book. So that's what's new and fresh. And this is not mundane knowledge. This is transcendental knowledge. That means it's unlimited. So actually, when we hear something, there's always more to it. There's many layers. And as we hear more, as we become more purified, as we understand more, more is revealed to us. So it's ever increasing and unlimited. So that was test number 3. Do you feel like you don't need to learn anything from anyone? Test number 4. Do we feel that everyone should respect me? When we initially come to the temple, we're very much humble and respectful of everyone. And over time, we feel like, yeah, I feel like everyone should respect me. I've been here a while, Our attitude and our mood might change. So that's something to reflect on. Number 5, do we have appreciation for everyone? So when we come initially to the temple, we're very much in the mood of learning and wanting to serve. But afterwards that changes. And our attitude and our mindset can change from I want to learn to I want to teach. You know, we feel like, oh yeah, I've learned something now, I'm going to share it with others. There's nothing wrong with preaching, but has our mindset shifted? Are we no longer in that learning mentality that actually there's so much more for me to learn? Number 6, do we see fault in others? Do we recognize faults in others? So there's different types of people. You know, some see good in people, the good qualities. Some see the bad qualities, faults. Some see both the good and the bad. Yes, this person has some good qualities, but also has some bad qualities. And there are others who see even the good as the bad. So they only see bad in a person. So where are we on that scale? You know, where are we? Can we reflect on that? So that's the 6-point test. And I'll ask you the question again. Do you feel like you've ever been envious of anyone? Yeah? So we use up so much of our energy in harboring this envy. You know, social media nowadays has definitely accelerated that. You know, people put up their best version of themselves on social media, and that attracts so much jealousy and envy from other people. And it just absorbs our mind, our thoughts all day long. And what is it that we're ultimately after? What do we want to be? We just want to be happy, don't we? But we feel like we can only be happy if someone else isn't happy. And I find that really strange. Like, why is it that we feel there is a limited stock of happiness and, you know, only I can be happy and I have to bring someone else down, you know? Who says there is a limited stock of happiness? There isn't, you know? Why can't we all be happy? So we shared 6 tests earlier, and now I'll share, it's not exhaustive, but 6 kind of steps we can take to trying to clear envy from other people. So the first one is, don't compare. We always compare ourselves to other people, right? So Theodore Roosevelt, he was a former president of the United States of America. And there's a quote from him where he says, comparison is the thief of all joy. What does that mean? It means when we compare, we're stealing our own happiness. Right? So don't compare. And leading on from that, so what should we do? We should be grateful for what we have. Number 2. You know, Krishna has given us so much. We've got relationships, family, shelter, food on our table, education, a job, you know, so much to be grateful for. Lots of abilities and talents. Everyone's unique. Everyone has different abilities and talents. Srila Prabhupada, he wrote in a letter in 1974, we should utilize our talents without being envious of others. You should do your best, but you should not be envious of others. In material life, there is simply envy of others' progress. But in spiritual life, one encourages another. Oh, you are doing very nice. That is Radharani. She says, oh, here is a very nice devotee. Please, Krishna, you accept him. So Prabhupada again is encouraging, you know, use your talents and abilities, but don't be envious of others. Don't compare yourself to others. Number 3, appreciate others. Everyone has a unique set of gifts, abilities that Krishna has given. And in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says he's the ability in man. So when we see other people doing well, using their talents and abilities in serving, we can think that ultimately the source is from Krishna, and it's so nice this person is using their abilities to serve him. We may not be able to verbally glorify it, but maybe we can write it down, you know, like write down one good quality of that person that you're envious of for like 30 days and do a 30-day challenge and see how you feel at the end. You'll find, you know, a lot of the envy is cleared. You can see a lot of good in that person. Prabhupada's spiritual master, Srila Bhaktivedanta Thakur, what he would do is, he had lots of disciples, and he'd see that sometimes, you know, they're not getting along, you know. So when he had meetings with his disciples, he would get one person to stand up and glorify another devotee publicly in front of all the devotees, you know. And in that way, they started appreciating each other more. So we might not be able to be at that stage, if we're envious of someone, that we can publicly glorify them, but maybe we can do it in private, by journaling or with a friend. And if we feel comfortable, then we can actually go up to that person and directly glorify them and appreciate them. So number 4, serve the person. Help them out with something. That will really help you clear the envy. And you'll get to know that person more as well and see their good qualities. Number 5, go deeper within and connect with yourself more. When we talk about happiness, we're seeing that we can't get happiness from external things. Everything's changing all the time in the material world. Everything's temporary. In Bhagavad Gita it says, Dukkhalayam ashashvatam. The material world is temporary and full of misery. We're not going to get any happiness from material things. So we've got to look within. Connect with our real selves. We're spirit souls, we're told from the Bhagavad Gita. We're not these bodies. And by nature, the spirit soul is Satchitananda, eternal, full of knowledge, and blissful. So let's try and connect with our real identity. And number 6, connect with Krishna. Krishna is the source of all happiness, right? So if we can connect with him, we can start to clear the envy as well. How can we connect with Krishna? Chanting. That's the Yuga Dharma of this age. That's the process being given to us, the easiest way. So we can chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra every day and try and connect with the Lord. So those were 6 steps, not exhaustive. There are many ways, but some ideas there to help us clear envy. So I mentioned envy is the king of anarthas. So where does a king usually sit? Throne, right? So we have a throne in our heart, but at the moment envy is occupying it, and so Krishna can't sit there. So if we clear the envy, Krishna can come and sit in our heart, right? So we want to invite him, so we need to clear that. So that was the first part of this verse. The second part I wanted to discuss today was when Krishna says he's not partial to anyone, but he's equal to all, right? So he says, he's equal to everyone, but then he says, those who serve me with devotion, I'm their friend. So is he partial or is he impartial? What do you think? So you think he's partial because he has a preference for devotees? Yeah? Okay. Any other views? Oh, you agree? Because?
Because he would reward those that are devotees of him. But it doesn't mean that he's partial to them. So bigger pictures, he's not partial.
You think he's not partial? Okay, interesting. Let's explore this a little bit more. So there's 2 sides, right? So how is Krishna impartial? So he supplies everybody with water, air, food, light, plants, animals, humans. Everyone gets the same thing. We all have the basic necessities of life, right? So he's impartial in that sense. In the purport, it was saying like the clouds pour rain everywhere. So similarly, Krishna is providing everyone with everything, right? An example of that is in the Battle of Kurukshetra. So in the Mahabharata, before the battle, Krishna gave Duryodhana and Arjun equal opportunity to pick from either himself or his Sena to be sort of on one of the sides. He didn't say, only Arjun's allowed to pick. He allowed both of them to pick, right? So he was impartial. That's an example of his impartiality. How is he partial? Later in the Bhagavad Gita, there's the famous verse, Paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya cha duskritam. He says he comes to protect the devotees and annihilate the miscreants. So kill the demons and protect the devotees. An example of that is, of his partiality is when he took the form of Vamanadev and he cheated Bali Maharaj by, he came in the form of a small brahmana, and he said, I only want 3 steps of land. And in 2 steps, he took everything. And in the 3rd step, he's like, you've got to give me something, And Bali Maharaj then offered himself. But didn't he cheat there? Was he not partial? One could say he was. So there's different examples of his impartiality and his partiality. So how do we understand this? So in chapter 4, verse 11, it says, Ye yatha mam prapadyante tam stathaiva bhajamyaham. So Krishna says, I award one depending on one's level of surrender. Right? So Krishna is impartially partial. He's impartially partial. Why? How? He's impartial because he opens the door for everyone to receive the benefit of his partiality towards his devotees. Anyone can become his devotee. He allows everybody to become his devotee. And in the purport, Prabhupada says, Krishna is a person, and, he's not discriminating by doing this because it's natural to be reciprocating. When someone gives you something, you reciprocate, right? An example is, in school, a teacher, right? They're teaching in the classroom. They're teaching everyone the same thing. So the teacher is impartial. But if a student then comes after class and says, I need help with this, can you explain this a little bit more? The teacher will happily provide that extra support because the student has asked for it. Equally, if a student is misbehaving, the teacher won't refrain from taking action and punishing the student, right? So is the teacher being partial? No, the teacher is just reciprocating according to the behavior of the student. Depending on how the student is behaving, the teacher reciprocates. So what's the point here? The point is that the Lord cares for everybody. Those who don't want to acknowledge the Lord and they want to sort of live their own lives, not engage in a direct relationship with the Lord, Krishna says, fine, okay, you want to enjoy here in the material world? You can enjoy. But you'll be under the laws of the material world then. So whatever action you perform, you'll get a reaction. So we have the law of karma that operates in the material world, So we have 3 types, karma, vikarma, and akarma, right? So karma means activities that are in line with our prescribed duties and in line with scripture. And so usually pious activities, and we get good karma from doing these kind of activities. Vikarma is activities that are not in line with scripture and not in line with our prescribed duties. So they award bad results. So they're usually sinful activities. And then we have akarma, which is activities that don't bind us to the material world, but actually free us from here, from the cycle of birth and death. So those who want to get out of this cycle, Krishna says, I'll help you. And it shows actually that the Lord is very, very kind. He doesn't force us in any way, but whatever we desire, he will help facilitate. If we don't want to engage in a relationship with him, fine. Be in this material world and you'll be under the laws of nature. But if you want to engage in a relationship with me, I will reciprocate. So this verse is actually a really nice glimpse into the heart of the Lord. And it affirms that he's a person as well. We hear man is made in the image of God. We can see Krishna really is a person. He reciprocates. He's not partial or impartial. It's about reciprocity. He reciprocates with the devotees who turn to him and serve him with love and devotion, and he bestows mercy on them. So that explains, we talked about envy, then we talked about partiality and impartiality. And then Krishna says, whoever renders service unto me in devotion. So what does he mean by this? Let's explore this a little bit more. Krishna is a person, like I said, so he's got feelings, he's got likes, he's got dislikes. So how can we understand that a little bit more? Well, we can read about Krishna from his pastimes. We can get to know Krishna like that, so we can understand what he wants, what he likes. And what does Krishna really want? Is it the activity that's important? No, because what does he say? He says, render service unto me in devotion. He just wants our love and devotion. And he knows that by serving him, it's not even about himself, it's about us. He knows that if we engage in our constitutional position as his servants, it's going to make us happy. He's doing it for us. So the Lord doesn't favor those who do more service or less, or sort of deny those who do less service. No, for him, it's all about attitude rather than magnitude of service. It's all about the devotion. So we hear in Ramayana, when they were building the bridge to Lanka, Lord Ramachandra was equally happy with Hanuman, who was bringing the big boulders to build the bridge, as well as the small squirrels, who were bringing grains of sand. He didn't look at, that, the big kind of stones are actually going to be more helpful than the grains of sand. No, he was equally pleased with the squirrel and Hanuman because they were doing it with devotion. So Krishna, there's many verses in here where Krishna explains, how to serve him, what he wants. So what practical steps can we take when we think about serving Krishna with devotion? Because philosophically we can understand, but in our day-to-day lives, what can we do? So Krishna says, in verse 27 in the 9th chapter, whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you offer or give away, and whatever austerities you perform, do that, O son of Kunti, as an offering to me. So he says, whatever you do. So what do we all do? Some of us live outside the temple, some of us live inside the temple. If you're outside, you might be working. So can we perhaps, with the money we earn, donate a little bit to the cause, to the movement? Can we use work as a means to help to raise the consciousness of our colleagues? Bring them to the mode of goodness, help cultivate good qualities, offer them prasadam, and uplift them like that. He says, whatever you eat, so at home or in the temple, offer the food before you take. And we're taking prasadam then, the Lord's mercy. Simple, right? Prasadam is very powerful. All it takes is cooking, and then we offer it to the Lord. And then if we take that prasadam, if we honor that prasadam, we can make so much spiritual advancement, Prabhupada even says. So such a simple way to make spiritual advancement and to please Krishna. And he doesn't even want something elaborate. He says, Patram pushpam phalam toyam. Offer me a leaf, a fruit, or a flower. He doesn't say, give me a feast, Because for him, it's not about the thing, not the object or the activity. It's about the love and the devotion. So we can worship him with our life, with our wealth, with our words. We can glorify him, like we're discussing today. With our intelligence also. Studying scripture is actually a form of worshiping the Lord with intelligence. That pleases the Lord as well. So we can start by doing some of these things. We can start also thinking about, around us. So we have the absolute truth, God. We can see him in 3 different forms. So there's Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. Brahman is the impersonal aspect of the Lord, his energy. It's all pervading throughout the universe. Paramatma is the localized aspect, the supersoul within every living entity's heart, as the witness and the permitter. And Bhagavan, the supreme person, Krishna, as we know him, So we can worship the Lord in all these different phases. As Brahman, when we're looking outside, nature is so beautiful. We can start to appreciate Krishna, how intricately he's made things in this material world. And we can remember Krishna that way. Krishna says, remember me, engage your mind in me, your thoughts in me. How can we do that? Appreciate, glorify, look around us and try and connect that to Krishna, what he's given us. As Paramatma, we can pray when we're, going through tough times. We can pray for guidance when we don't know what to do. And as Bhagavan, try to engage in a personal relationship with the Lord, with Krishna directly. And then in the final part of this verse, he says, if you render service unto me with devotion, then what happens? So he reciprocates as a friend. But he does so much more. We hear that if we take 1 step towards Krishna, Krishna takes 10 steps towards us. He really, really reciprocates. Love isn't one-sided. Here we think love is, for my pleasure, what am I going to get out of this? It's one-sided. That's actually a perverted form of love. It's lust in this material world. But real love is selfless. It's about pleasing the object of love. And, Krishna will even override your karma, if we're engaged in devotional service. Prabhupada would often say, if someone had cut their finger, then he'd say, your hand was meant to get chopped off, but Krishna is so kind, he just gave you a little cut, He won't even give us the full results of our activities. He'll decrease it for us because he can see that, we really want to come back to him. And, he reciprocates with all sorts of devotees, even demons. We hear of like Putana, who tried to poison him when he was a baby. He awarded liberation. Mixed devotees, the demigods, when they churned the milk ocean, Krishna sided with the demigods over the demons and, conned them by coming in the Mohini Murti form and took the nectar away from the demons and gave it to the demigods. And for the pure devotees, he goes all out. He becomes a devotee of the devotees. For Arjun, when on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, Krishna vowed he would not take part in the war. But when Bhishma, was going to kill Arjun, Krishna took the wheel of the chariot and was going to charge at Bhishma. He broke his vow to not fight to protect his devotee. So Krishna is even willing to be defamed, for his devotee. So much love. So what does he say? In chapter 10, verse 10, he says, "Those who are constantly devoted to serving me with love, I give the understanding by which they can come to me." So if we engage in service to the Lord with love, Krishna will give us the intelligence and guide us of how we can come back to him. He will reciprocate. He doesn't forgive us. He doesn't forget us. In the purport to this verse, it says, devotional service to the Lord is not an activity of this material world. It's part of the spiritual world where eternity, bliss, and knowledge predominates. So we should remember that when we're engaging in devotional service, it's not of this material realm, it's transcendental. So we can be sure that, it's not, that the laws of this world don't operate in the same way. And the Lord can override this. And it's inconceivable for us, for our senses and our limited intelligence and intellect. But if we serve with faith in the Lord, so many things will open up for us. So many things will change for us, and we'll really be able to see the Lord reciprocating. So I'll end here. We shared today we talked about envy. We talked about the Lord's partiality or impartiality. And actually, he's neither. He's reciprocal. We spoke about how the Lord just wants us to serve him with devotion. And then what does that mean for us and how the Lord reciprocates. He goes beyond what is expected when we serve him with love and devotion. So thank you for the opportunity to share something. Please forgive me for any mistakes, and please, if you have any corrections or comments or questions.
Yeah, just to comment that the points you talked about, it's very important for me from what I understand with my limited intelligence, knowledge. It's the reason why we are here, is because we are envious of Krishna. So it's an important point. It's like the main reason why we're here. And so what you spoke about, love, I think also is very important because that's the only thing that Krishna is interested in, is the true heart love relation with his devotees. So you presented it very nicely, simply, in a very personal way. So thank you.
Thank you so much for listening. Thank you.